What happens when one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time fires their longtime lead singer and replaces him with somebody else, and both band and former frontman each have a comeback where the frontman went solo. He recruited probably somebody who will always forever be one of the greatest hard rock or metal guitarists of all time. How's it going, old schoolers? You're kicking it old school at Russell JS, and I am your host, Russell JS. I'm turning this fan off. Um, I am gonna do a an album versus album, track by track, producer by producer, for this video. Tonight we have Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz versus Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Now, what had happened was the turmoil was Ozzy was getting too crazy with the excesses, with the drugs and the booze, and he was getting lazy. I mean, remember the review I did on their previous album before Heaven and Hell? Yeah, how lazy it sounded. The band was sounding lazy. Egos were probably clashing, and, it was time for a change in the guard, and they were about to go broke. So Ozzy ends up parting ways with his bandmates. The band's manager's daughter, Sharon, picked up on him, got him to clean his act up for the moment, got a good backup band, including one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, the late great Randy Rhoads. And they put out a really stellar, killer album that would catapult Ozzy all the way to superstardom. And Black Sabbath recruited yet another one of the greatest frontmen that ever lived, the late great Ronnie James Dio, which I'm sure in heaven Randy Rhoads and Dio are rocking out together. Everything's all cool between the two. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go track by track, and I'm going to go producer versus producer. So before we get started, I want to remind you that if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit a like, subscribe, and put a comment in the box down below. And also ring the bell for notifications for future content, and also check out my videos for the weekly narc. I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately because my father had the open heart surgery, and I was getting ready to do more videos and more content, and I came down with a really bad cold, and I'm working 2 jobs. But without further ado, let's check these bad Oscars out, shall we? Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz versus Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell. Now, first off, when it comes to the producers, this album, even though it's a masterpiece, it's a heavy metal classic, it's a heavy metal masterpiece, it was produced by all the guys in the band. It was produced by Ozzy, it was produced by Randy, Bob Daisley, and Lee Kerslake. But, I'm not going to say anything bad that it was the band that produced the record and not a professional producer. Heaven and Hell was produced and engineered by Martin Birch, who would go on to produce, I believe, Blue Oyster Cult's Fire of Unknown Origin, and he would go on and produce a few albums by Iron Maiden. But I got my thing ready. I gotta go get a pen so I could go ahead and rate everything. Now, so far, I've already mentioned the producers of both these albums, so I'm going to go ahead and give each album for producer 1 point. Now we get to the track lists. Okay, Blizzard of Oz versus Heaven and Hell. Now here we are track by track. I did, however, exclude track number 4 on Blizzard of Oz, D, that Randy Rhoads composition. I mean, granted, that is Randy Rhoads. You could hear the potential in him of what could have been. But I want to do all the tracks because One album has 9 tracks and the other has 8. So I want to kind of balance it out a bit. So people, please don't get mad at me for this. Okay, don't leave anything nasty in the comments box. I just wanted to make everything fair and balanced, just like Fox News. Okay, here we go. I Don't Know versus Neon Nights. Love both tracks, so 1 point Ozzy, 1 point Sabbath. Crazy Train versus Children of the Sea. Yes. I gotta go ahead. 2 points, a point each. So 3 points Ozzy, 3 points Black Sabbath. Goodbye to Romance versus Lady Evil. I think it was a little bit too premature for Ozzy to do a power ballad on his debut album. I mean, this is his big comeback album. He's out to prove to Black Sabbath he didn't need them to be talented, and he did prove it. He did prove that he was the man, he's the king, he's the godfather of heavy metal. However, I don't think Goodbye to Romance really should have been, that should have been saved for maybe Diary of a Madman. So 1 point Sabbath. Suicide Solution versus the title track Heaven and Hell again. Thing is about Suicide Solution, later on there would be a controversy that a teenager who was a big Ozzy fan listened to the song and he went and blew his brains out. And a couple other teenagers had done that sometime later, and the parents went to go ahead and sue Ozzy Osbourne for the lyrics, but they couldn't find proof that it encouraged teenagers to kill themselves. A stellar song, stellar guitar work by the man Randy Rhoads. So, and Heaven and Hell, that's classic old school Sabbath at its best, just with Ronnie James Dio, and the song has a positive message. So 1 point Ozzy and 1 point Sabbath. And right now, as it stands, Sabbath has 5 points and Ozzy has 4. I know. Okay, here we go. Mr. Crowley versus Wishing Well. Love Mr. Crowley. Love that intro with the keyboards. I mean, it's very haunting. It's very scary. I mean, it just kind of chills your spine a bit. And Wishing Well is also a really awesome tune. So 1 point Ozzy, 1 point Sabbath. This is where Ozzy gets a little tongue-in-cheek humor here, where he's not taking himself seriously, and the guitar work is just awesome by the late great Randy Rhoads. No Bone Movies versus Die Young. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Again, I love them both. So 1 point Ozzy and 1 point Sabbath. I love that song, No Bone Movies. I mean, just talking about how young men, when they get to their adolescence, how, they're ashamed of what they do when they're looking at dirty movies. All right, Revelation, Mother Earth versus Walk Away. I like how first off, it sounds like it's going to be another slow power ballad, but, and it's very haunting, but then it breaks out to just Randy just going at it, ripping on the guitar. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ozzy a point, and Walk Away is also a really killer song. So I'm going to give that to Sabbath as well. Steal Away the Night versus Lonely is the World. Um, yes. Lonely is the word, you know. Uh, yeah, the last song, it is killer. It is fantastic, but I think Steal Away the Night blows Lonely is the word out of the water. So, 1 point Ozzy and 0 for Sabbath. Now I'm going to go ahead and tally up the score. As I look here, Blizzard of Oz comes in at 8 with a score of 8 points, and Heaven and Hell comes in also with 8 points. So it is a tiebreaker. It is a tie. So now I got to break the tie. I gotta let fate decide. I love both these albums, but I can only choose one or the other. I'd never want to leave these into a tie. I like to be fair. Which one, probably in my opinion, is better? They're both awesome in my book. But unfortunately, to be fair, I want to be fair with everybody who loves both these records. I'm gonna flip a coin. I can't find a quarter, so I got a dime, so it'll be heads Ozzy, tails Sabbath. Dimes are really hard to flip. And it landed on my leg. So, you know what? I'll say that's where it landed. And when I reveal it, when I remove my thumb off the top, that's when we'll decide who the winner is. And it's heads. Ozzy won. So, Fate is an Ozzy Osbourne / Randy Rhoads fan. And you know what? Sabbath, they kind of had bad luck later on throughout the decades. I mean, they had Ronnie James Dio for a few years, and then Ronnie James left the band. And I heard a couple tracks off some of the stuff Sabbath did with albums like Born Again, where Ian Gillan was the vocalist. And the way I see it, you know, for me, when it comes to Black Sabbath changing their lead singers, you know, I feel the same way about it as I feel about, like, AC/DC and Van Halen. Like, everybody will debate that when David Lee Roth left Van Halen and was replaced by Sammy Hagar, Van Halen was done. Or AC/DC was done when Bon Scott died. You know what? Both singers brought what they brought to the fold, but this isn't about Van Halen or AC/DC. It's about Ozzy and Sabbath. And you know what? Both Ozzy and Dio brought their agendas to Sabbath. Ian Gillan just couldn't fit the bill. I mean, Ozzy would make an appearance with Sabbath during Live Aid in the mid 1980s, and then he would go on with the rest of his solo career, and Dio would do his own thing with his band Dio, and Dio would actually make a comeback, with Sabbath, with the album Dehumanizer, which I really love. And around the same time, Ozzy would come out with No More Tears. But I heard during the time of when they were touring for, I think, the Mob Rules, boy, Tony Iommi was just being a prankster. He used to put crates, he used to stand Dio's mic stand a little taller than, because Dio was a short guy. So he would put the mic stand taller than what Dio is, and he would put a milk crate right there so Dio can stand. And he would do that as a joke, but Dio, I guess, took it the wrong way and he quit. And then got replaced by Ian Gillan. And Ian Gillan, to me, from Deep Purple, he's good for Deep Purple. He's not good for Sabbath. But Fate had it that Blizzard of Oz won this particular round. But you know what? No matter what fate decided, still in my opinion, both those albums are awesome. They're great albums. I mean, they were the comeback for both Ozzy and Black Sabbath. And say what you will, say, oh, Sabbath was nothing without Ozzy, or, Dio was way better than Ozzy, whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. At any rate, that's all the time I have for this video. And like I said in the beginning, if you like what you see, hit a like, subscribe, leave a comment down in the box below, ring the bell for notifications, and remember, and also, don't forget to check out the videos of the Weekly Narc. And remember, stay cool, stay chill, stay hip. Get you enough of love, get you enough of peace, tranquility, the good Lord. Get you enough of less drama in your life. And play some Atari or Nintendo. Watch 80s movies. Watch movies, listen to hard rock of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and 2000s, and 2010s, and the current 2020s. If, well, actually, no, we can consider the music from 10 years ago old school now, and bands like Nickelback or classic rock and Nirvana is oldies. But, as always, I want to wish you all, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, all the people you love. Listen to some great, old school rock, play some old school video games, watch old school movies. I'll be back for more videos come your way. And most importantly, as I always sign off, Godspeed, and may the force be with you all, always.